Miss Elizabeth, Head of Youth Services at the Finkelstien Memorial Library. Before we get to today's book chat, I want to explain why I've missed the last couple ones. We have been hard at work getting the library to be able to reopen to limited staff so that we can work on accommodating our own workspaces so we can eventually open to the public. We will be opening in a staged plan. Everything is dates to be determined and things can change, but we are hard at work to open our doors to you once again. Even while our doors are closed, we are working so hard to provide resources to you. The Youth Services Department is currently developing an I Can Make a Change manual for kids and teens. The manual will be a guide to all things social justice and anti-racism. We are still here for you even with our doors closed, and we want to connect you to the resources that you need during this trying time. We want to provide resources to help grown-ups talk to their youngest kids about racism and having those tough conversations. We want to provide resources for older children and teens to help explain and educate and further their knowledge while all of these historic protests are going on outside. In addition to the resources provided on our guide, we will also be sharing multiple book lists that our librarians are curating of own voices Black authors. So books that are written from Black authors with their unique perspective on the subject matters. We really urge you to take advantage of these guides and these resources, but if there's more that we can provide to you, that we can connect you with for resources, please reach out. Just because the library is closed does not mean that the library is not here for you during this time. We are only an email away, and we miss you all, and we want to help however we can. Please reach out. This week's book chat is a sneak peek of some of those Own Voices Black authors books that will be featured in our new manual. This was really, really hard because I love making book lists and I have read a good amount of these books. The other books on the list are ones that have won awards or that some of our other staff recommended. And once I started, I just had so many that I wanted to put on this list. So this list is absolutely limited. There are so many other fantastic books out there too. I just had to stop myself and say, Elizabeth, this is all we're going to talk about today. So here are some books. Not all of them relate to social justice, but they will all be featured in our new manual because all of them have some element that makes them really important to read. So, without further ado, all of the summaries of the books I did not write. They came from the official descriptions by the publishers. Our first book up is a picture book called Hair Love. When mommy is away, it's up to daddy to do his daughter's hair, and this ode to self-confidence and the love between fathers and daughters. The next book up is a YA book that I have mentioned before in my videos. It's one of my favorite audiobooks called The Hate You Give. If you haven't read it by now, you absolutely should pick it up if you're interested. It is the author's debut novel, expanded from a short story that she wrote in college in reaction to the police shooting of Oscar Grant. The next one up is Ghost Boys, a heartbreaking and powerful story for older children about a Black boy killed by a police officer, drawing connections through history from an award-winning author. YA book Slay. Ready Player One meets The Hate You Give in this dynamic debut novel that throws fierce teen game developer as she battles a real-life troll on the internet, ruining the Black Panther-inspired video game she created and the safe community it represents for Black gamers. Our next title is one that I just had to put on there. It has to do with the library. Schoenberg, The Man Who Built a Library, is a nonfiction picture book. In luminous paintings and arresting poems, two of children's literature's top African-American scholars track Arturo Schomburg's quest to correct history. This is a really cool story that has to do with the New York Public Library. Our next title is called Black Enough, Stories of Being Young and Black in America. It is a YA book of multiple stories. It's what's called an anthology, and it is star-studded, edited by a National Book Award finalist, that delves into closeted thoughts, hidden experiences, and daily struggles of Black teens across the country. The next one up is, I think, actually my only graphic novel on the list. I will have to fix that next time. I love graphic novels. The New Kid. This was the first graphic novel to win the Newbery Award. The story of Jordan Banks, who experiences culture shock when he enrolls at a private school. The next one up is another book that I've mentioned before, Children of Blood and Bone. With 5-starred reviews, this West African-inspired fantasy debut, an instant #1 New York Times bestseller, conjures a world of magic and danger. And it certainly does. It had me hooked from the first second. It is a phenomenal fantasy story. Our next title up is another one for kids. The Watsons Go to Birmingham. This Newbery Honor-winning American classic tells the hilarious world of 10-year-old Kenny and his family from Flint, Michigan, whose parents decide it's time for a visit to Grandma. They're heading south to Birmingham, Alabama, towards one of the darkest moments in America's history. Long Way Down is another YA title, and this New York Times bestseller's fiercely stunning novel that takes place in 60 poignant seconds, the time it takes a kid to decide whether he's going to murder the guy who killed his brother. This is told in verse, and it is so incredibly powerful. Next, we've got another YA book, The Stars Beneath Our Feet. A boy tries to steer a safe path through the projects in Harlem in the wake of his brother's death in this outstanding debut novel that celebrates community and creativity. And another one for kids, A Good Kind of Trouble. From debut author comes this funny and big-hearted middle grade novel about friendship, family, and standing up for what's right. And a book that you may have heard of, that a lot of people have been reading lately, Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. A timely, crucial, and empowering exploration of racism and anti-racism in America. Next we have another fun fantasy one. Folktale-y kind of fantasy. The Thejumbies. A spine-tingling tale rooted in Caribbean folklore that will have readers holding their breaths as they fly through the pages. This book is awesome, and it's part of a series, which means that there is more. Next up, we have another nonfiction picture book for some of our younger readers. Hidden Figures for Black Women and the Space Race. In this illustrated picture book, we explore the story of 4 female African-American mathematicians at NASA, known as colored computers, and how they overcame gender and racial barriers to succeed in a highly challenging STEM-based career. That's a story that some of the grown-ups may know from the movies or the adult book that came out a few years ago about their story. Next up, we have another YA title called X. Co-written by Malcolm X's daughter, this riveting and revealing novel follows the formative years of the man whose words and actions shook the world. So that is really cool. She also wrote another book from Betty's perspective that's for middle grade, which is also really good, but I tried to limit myself on books I put on the list. But they're both worth a read. All right, next up we have the Parker Inheritance, which is a fun mystery kind of book. When Candace finds a letter in an old attic in Lambert, South Carolina, she isn't sure she should read it. It's addressed to her grandmother who left town in shame. But the letter describes a young woman, an injustice that happened decades ago, a mystery unfolding its writer, and the fortune that awaits this person who solves the puzzle. So that is a really, really fun one. And our last YA for today is How It Went Down. When 16-year-old Tyreek Johnson dies from 2 gunshot wounds, his community is thrown into an uproar. Tyreek was black. The shooter, Jack Franklin, is white. In the aftermath of Tyreek's death, everyone has something to say, but no 2 accounts of the events line up. Day by day, new twists further obscure the truth. And our last book that I want to show today is a children's book called Blended. 11-year-old Isabella's blended family is more divided than ever in this timely but genuine story about divorce and racial identity from the award-winning and New York Times best-selling author. And it is certainly last but not least because this book I felt a really deep personal connection to on a lot of levels, and I really hope that one of these books allows you to relate to characters that you might not have thought to relate to, because there are so many different characters in these books and there are so many stories. These are just a few of them. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed these books. I hope that you will check some out. If you have any issues on how to access any of our ebooks, please let us know. Shoot us an email. Keep an eye out for our I Can Make a Difference manual that will hopefully be out by the end of next week. And stay tuned for updates as we get ready to reopen the building and reopen our doors to you. We have an e-newsletter, and we also update our social media and our website. So stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. We'll see you soon.